You ever have a place that feels sacred? For me, it was my garage, my escape from a rough year. But then she stormed in. Karen, the self-appointed HOA queen, barged through my door like a wrecking ball, bungee cord in hand, acting like she owned my life. She didn't know it yet. But that stunt was the beginning of her downfall. If you've ever watched someone underestimate the wrong person and thought, I wish I could see karma work in real time, smash that like button, subscribe, and stick around. Because today's story isn't just about a stolen bungee cord, it's about boundaries, respect, and the sweetest revenge I've ever served cold. My garage isn't just four walls and a concrete floor, it's my sanctuary. After my dad passed, I inherited his old tools, each one a piece of his life and our shared memories. Fixing things, building shelves, even just organizing screws in little jars, it's how I keep his presence close. After work, I'd head there, slide the door open, and let the smell of sawdust and motor oil ground me. Our neighborhood is the kind of place where houses are so close you can smell what your neighbor's cooking for dinner. Most folks are polite, maybe even a little too nosy, but Karen was on another level. Perfectly ironed blouses, pearls at 9 a.m., and a voice that could cut through brick. She'd complain about trash cans being an inch out of line or kids laughing too loud. People laughed about her behind her back, but when she showed up on your doorstep, that laugh stuck in your throat. At first, I stayed out of her way. I waved politely, nodded at her over-the-top HOA rants, and kept to myself. But it wasn't tea long before she started poking at the one place I couldn't stand anyone touching, my garage. It started small. One Saturday I walked in to find my stepladder missing. A few days later, Karen appeared at my door, casually returning it. No apology, just a smirk and a comment about how some people don't mind sharing. I swallowed my irritation. Maybe she just didn't know better. But then it happened again. And again. Tools out of place. My air compressor mysteriously used. One afternoon I overheard her telling another neighbor, "Oh, he doesn't care. He's single. His garage is basically community property." That's when my jaw tightened and my heart thumped in my ears. A week later I came home to find my garage door slightly open. My stomach dropped. Inside, half my neatly organized tools were scattered across the floor like a storm had torn through. And there she was, Karen, digging through my shelves with that same smug expression as if my personal property were aisle 5 at her local hardware store. "Karen!" I snapped, louder than I intended. "What are you doing in here?" She barely flinched. "Oh, don't be dramatic. The HOA's flower beds need a little fixing and you weren't home. It's not like you use all this stuff." My fists clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. I wanted to yell, but a part of me hesitated. Neighbors have a way of twisting stories, and Karen was a master manipulator. Instead, I took a deep breath and said evenly, "Next time ask. This is my dad's equipment, and it means something to me." She rolled her eyes like a teenager. "Fine, but you should really learn to be more community-minded." Then she sauntered out, leaving muddy footprints on the concrete. Over the next few days, whispers trickled through the neighborhood. Stories that I was hoarding tools, that I'd refused to help with HOA projects. Karen was painting me as selfish, and people were starting to believe her. Even the Smiths, who'd shared beers with me on the driveway, gave me awkward half-smiles instead of friendly waves. That quiet, isolating shame. It burned worse than anger. The final straw came on a Thursday night. I was heading to bed when I heard a loud crash outside. I rushed to the garage and found the door hanging crooked on its tracks. Inside, Karen stood frozen, a snapped bungee cord dangling from her hand, boxes toppled over around her. She'd been trying to borrow my pressure washer alone at night, when the cord holding it had whipped loose and knocked over an entire shelving unit. "You have no right to be here!" I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. My hands trembled, not just with rage but with the weight of every insult, every manipulation. She scoffed, but I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Oh, please, I was just helping. You're overreacting. But this time, I didn't swallow my frustration. I didn't let it slide. I stood there in that wrecked garage, staring at my dad's dented toolbox on the floor, and something inside me hardened. Karen wasn't just borrowing things, she was taking pieces of my peace, my memories, my reputation, and she thought she'd get away with it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table under a single yellow bulb, sipping coffee and sketching ideas on a notepad. I could confront her again, but that hadn't worked. I could complain to the HOA board, but she was the board. Then a thought sparked, a way to use her arrogance against her. Karen loved two things, control and appearances. If she lost even a sliver of either, she'd unravel. So I started small. I installed a motion-activated camera in my garage, positioned perfectly to catch anyone stepping inside. Then I quietly replaced a few non-essential tools with obvious decoys, cheap knockoffs that would break if mishandled, and for a finishing touch, I made a point of chatting with a few neighbors, casually mentioning how the HOA had been cracking down on unauthorized borrowing lately. Days passed. Karen stayed away for a while. Then one Saturday afternoon, while I pretended to wash my car, I saw her slip into my garage again. The camera caught everything, her rifling through my drawers, breaking a decoy wrench, and pocketing a small socket set. That night, I downloaded the footage, my heart pounding as Karen's face filled the screen, caught red-handed. But instead of confronting her right away, I waited. Timing was everything. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Monday, and Karen always opened those gatherings with a smug little speech about upholding our community values. I walked in carrying a small USB drive and a calm smile. As neighbors murmured about landscaping budgets and fence paint, I raised my hand. "Before we talk about community values," I said, "there's something we should all see." The room went silent as I plugged the drive into the projector. The video flickered to life, Karen creeping into my garage, breaking the wrench and stuffing tools into her purse. Gasps rippled through the room. The Smiths, the ones she'd turned against me, exchanged wide-eyed glances. Someone muttered, "Unbelievable." Karen's face drained of color. She tried to speak, some excuse about borrowing for the community, but the room wasn't buying it. For once, her charm failed her. I stood there, steady as a rock, while she squirmed. "Karen," I said evenly, "you stormed my garage, broke my dad's tools, and then tried to ruin my reputation. You don't get to hide behind community service anymore." The HOA board voted right there to remove her as president. A few neighbors even suggested she pay for the damages. Karen bolted from the meeting, too embarrassed to make eye contact with anyone. As the door slammed behind her, a weight lifted off my chest. For months she'd chipped away at my peace, but in the end, she'd handed me the rope to unravel her own empire. Driving home that night, I couldn't help but smile. Justice doesn't always need shouting or chaos. Sometimes it just needs patience, a camera, and a little poetic timing. Watching her face as the truth rolled out, that was the sweetest sound of all. If Karen's downfall made your day, smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? And don't forget to subscribe because stories like this, they're just getting started.